Alright, this is gonna be a bit of a different kind of video. Here's Bumble, sitting in front of my computer. I got snowed in from work today because I live in New Hampshire and we got like over a foot of snow. And yesterday and the day before, I was working on setting this up, which is a Raspberry Pi 3 with 3B specifically. I don't really know what the difference is. Um, with an archive of Wikipedia, as well as some documentation and stuff, and a Copyparty server. And it's pretty cool. Um, I will show it momentarily here. Um, and then today I got this, a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W, which is $15. And I had this 256 gigabyte micro SD card. And I wasn't intending on making it another one of these, but I realized specifically for Copyparty that this is something that I think a lot of people would like to have, and that I could just make a quick video showing how to set one up. This is, like $40 altogether for these two things. And, even if you decide that you don't want to use it for that, there are a million different things you can do with this. So there really isn't much risk. Yeah, just get your hands on one of these. You can buy them from Adafruit, or I don't know, there are other places you can get them as well. Get a micro SD card. It doesn't have to be 256 gigabytes, but if you're going to use it for storing a lot of stuff, you'll probably want a good amount of space. And, it's an adapter you can plug into your computer. Okay, so I'll just show my server real quick. Can just go to servername.local. I have a simple Python HTTP server just serving this HTML page that can redirect to the Kiwix server and the Copyparty server. So you can go here. Here's Kiwix, all these documentations and wikis and stuff. They can take like a little while to kind of boot up at first, but once you're in them, they're pretty quick. Here's Wikipedia. You can see, I'd say browsing it is as fast, if not faster, than browsing, actual Wikipedia, even though this is just running on a 10-year-old Raspberry Pi. So that's pretty cool. And this is the full archive. It's like 120 gigabytes. So if I go back to homepage here, can go to Copyparty, and here you can click pictures, read text in a different way, can listen to audio right in here, and has a volume control. It's pretty cool. You can make folders and all this. Now, I can't upload anything right now because I'm not logged in. You can see it says read-only access, but if I log in, now that I'm logged in, you can see I have access to a personal folder, which you couldn't see before, and I have access to some more controls up here. I can make a folder. I can make a text file and write in it. Back out here, look at the text file. Pretty cool. And I am nowhere near, fully utilizing the capabilities of this. The feature list of this is just kind of insane. I'll put a link to the video where I first learned about it in the description, so you can learn more about it and more about its capabilities. This is just HTTP, not HTTPS, so sometimes LibreWolf or Firefox will yell at me about that. I'm not too concerned because it's just on my local network. But I know you can enable HTTPS on Copyparty, so if you want, you can do that. I'm not sure exactly how. I don't imagine it's too difficult, but I'm just not too concerned about it. So anyway, plug in your micro SD card and then search for Raspberry Pi Imager. They have it for Linux, Windows, and Mac. I think generally this process will be easier to do on Linux and Mac because you're using SSH for getting into the Raspberry Pi, and Linux and Mac can just do that easily natively. You can do it on Windows as well, but I'm just not sure exactly how. I know I've used PuTTY for it in the past, but I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what the... I'm sure there's probably a way you can do it from the command line, but I don't know exactly how. But Linux and Mac, it's just the same process for both of them. It's very easy. So I already have this downloaded. You need to run this as sudo in Linux. So I will just say sudo./imager. And then scroll down to Raspberry Pi 02W. These are desktop operating systems. So like if you want to plug in a monitor and keyboard and mouse, that's what you would want to use. But we want to go here to the Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit. Select the SD card, make sure it's the correct one, that you aren't just going to be writing over something. Host name, this is just the name of your server. Localization, username and password, something secure, hopefully. Wi-Fi, put in your internet, your network's SSID and password, so it's able to just automatically connect to the internet. There is a way you can do this manually with a WPA supplicant file, like putting that into the bootfs or something, if you just forgot to do this or something. But you need it on the internet one way or another. You could connect with Ethernet. There are adapters. I actually have one coming I have an original Raspberry Pi Zero that I want to be able to put on the network. So I have an adapter coming for that. And the Raspberry Pi 3B, well, I think all the Raspberry Pis, like the normal size ones, they all have Ethernet ports, at least the ones I've seen. But you need it on the network one way or another. Easiest way is just to put in the information here. SSH, this will probably be off by default. You definitely want to enable that because that's how we're getting into the system. Authentication, use password authentication. I think using public key authentication is better, but I'm still not like quite at the point where I'm using SSH keys for things. I'm mostly just kind of using passwords for SSHing between computers. It's just all on my home network, so I'm not terribly concerned about it, but I think using public key authentication is better overall. There's plenty of information about that online. Next, and write the image. This will probably take like 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. Okay, so this is done now. Click finish. Pull this out and put the micro SD card into the Raspberry Pi and connect the power. So something to take note of before you plug it in. See, there are two micro USB ports here. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video or not, but try zooming. Yeah, there you go. Power in. You want to put the power into that one, not that one. And now we'll just wait for a few minutes. I think it may take a little bit longer than usual to start up for the first time because it has some additional things to do the first time it starts. Like for one thing, it expands the file system, which is something I ran into when I was setting up the Kiwix server, because I was trying to write the operating system and then immediately just transfer the zim files from this computer onto it, but it doesn't use the entire micro SD card when flashing the image. It leaves most of the space untouched, and it isn't until it boots up for the first time that it expands the file system. So you have to do that, start it up for the first time, and then you can pull it out and put it back into your computer and you'll have access to the entire drive. Okay, we can try it, see if it's started up by now. So just SSH username at hostname tutorial server dot local. And it's probably gonna, nope, not up. It's not quite up yet. It's probably gonna yell at me when I finally get connected to it, because it has already been connected to this same device with the same name, but something has changed because I've reflashed the drive. So it's gonna yell at me a little bit, but it should not pull up any, well, it will pull up one thing that you'll see after it yells at me, but let's try again. There we go. So this is what it's warning me about, but I just need to do this to remove the key. There we go. And now I will try SSHing into it again. It'll pop this up the first time you connect. Just say yes, and then put in the password. And there you go. You're into the Raspberry Pi now. Now, using username at hostname.local may not work. I've had some issues with this, and you'll see the same thing on some browsers. Sometimes a browser won't let you use hostname.local. It will want the IP address. I don't know why. I'm not sure why sometimes it wants the IP address, sometimes it doesn't care. But if you run into that and you need to get the IP address, this is how you can do it. I'll just open up a new window here. You can use Nmap for it, which you'll probably need to install. It's just, sudo apt install Nmap. And to use it, you'll just run, so you'll want to figure out what your gateway's IP address is, your router. I'm sure there is a direct way to do this. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but a straightforward way of doing it is just hostname -I. That will give your local IP address for your current computer. And just based on how that begins, you should know what your router's IP address is. Because for me, it's 10.0.0.1. So all of my local IP addresses here start with 10.0.0 and then some number. A lot of networks will be 192.16. 192.168.1 point whatever. And if you have a network like that, then your router's IP address, presumably at least, would be 192.168.1.1. But once you know that, you can run nmap with sudo nmap dash lowercase s capital P the gateway's IP address /24, and the /24 is, I think it's like a CIDP subnet mask or something like that, which my understanding of this stuff is very vague. But the general understanding I have of it is that, well, an IP address is a 32-bit number. You know, you can see the numbers here go from 0 to 255 for each of these numbers, separated by periods. Each of those is an 8-bit number. So altogether, it's 32 bits. And the /24 is masking out the first 24 bits. So it's basically just, it doesn't really care about, it's going to leave those the same as just kind of running through all of these, the final 8 bits, 0 through 255, or whatever it is. I don't think it's actually 256. It might be like 255 or 254 IP addresses that can be like on this level, but something like that. It's basically just telling it the range of IP addresses to scan over. So we're gonna run that. Don't sue me if that explanation is not completely correct. I'm not like a network admin. I just sort of have a vague understanding of this from what I've had to learn to do this kind of thing. So here are all the IP addresses on my network. Gateway, that's the router. 130, I think that's my iPad. 211, this is the Raspberry Pi 3 that is running this server. ThonkPod, that's this computer. And I believe, well, I know, but this is the Pi 02W. However, it doesn't say anything. It does not indicate that it is a Raspberry Pi. I only know that because I've done this a few times at this point. So if you're in a situation like this where the hostname.local didn't work and you've had to scan for IP addresses and there are multiple unknowns, I would just try them each until you find the right one. Like if I try SSHing into this one, which I believe is my iPad, it is not going to accept it. So even if I did root at, which is probably what it would actually be looking for, but assuming I was trying to find which one was the Raspberry Pi server, hyphen at, it's just going to refuse it, because that seems to be the way iOS devices go. But you can just try it until you find the right one. But ideally, you would be able to use just the hostname.local. But anyway, once you are in, you first want to sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade, which can take a little while. Okay, so that is finally finished updating. So you'll want to go to the Copyparty GitHub page. Oh, which, by the way, some of this was based on this post from Inky Voxel, which was very helpful. I'll leave a link to this in the description. There's some things we'll be copying from this, particularly the service, systemd service. So go to releases. You can use Copyparty SFX or Copyparty N. I used Copyparty N just because it's slightly thinner and I don't need other language support. I think SFX would still run completely fine. Like, you know, I was watching HTOP on the Raspberry Pi 3 as I was using it, both using it and Kiwix, and it was like barely anything. So I'm sure you could use this one just fine, but I just went with N because it's, you know, I don't need other language support. So we will use wget and then that link to download the file. Sudo chmod plus x the file just to, you know, mark it as executable, and then we will move it to user local bin. I don't think it's actually user, I think it's like universal system something, but it's easy to just say user. Then we will go sort of make our file system, which I think you can put just about anywhere. The guides I've seen have put it in mount, which is where I put it as well. However, I'm guessing they probably put it there because they were using, you know, SSDs or hard drives or whatever and mounting them there. We don't need to do that because this is all on a single micro SD card. So I don't think you need to put them here. You could probably put them just about anywhere, but I don't know. It's kind of out of the way. I just stuck them here anyway. Kind of the downside is that you need to use sudo with things, but it's not that you're really only having to deal with this during the setup, so it's not that big of a deal. So sudo make directory Copyparty, and then we'll move into Copyparty, and we will sudo make dir haifu. So that's a user folder that you could have available only to a specific user. Now we should make a configuration file. I know I need to install Vim. We could use, I don't know, Nano? I think Nano is probably installed by default. I'm just so accustomed to using Vim at this point that just got my default. But whatever text editor you want. And I will sudo vim etc copyparty.conf. Now there's a lot you can do in the configuration file. The Copyparty README is gigantic. Again, it has an unbelievable amount of capabilities. You can do a ton with it. You can do a ton with the configuration file. Mine is just dead simple, because I don't really need anything more complicated than this. But if you want to do more stuff, read through here and do it. But mine is just going to be global P3923. This specifies the port. I don't know that you need to specify it here because
I think that's just the default, but that's fine. And usernames to enable usernames. However, this may also be optional because they may also be enabled by default. I'm not sure. Because some things like accounts and volumes, you can see here, like maybe they just didn't show the global section where they enabled usernames. I don't know, but I just put it in there anyway. Then accounts. And for this, let me pull up my paper here. You can make your accounts here. I'm just gonna have one for me, which would be haifu, colon, and then the password, which will be haifudiar. Just should probably, be something secure, but that's fine. Okay. So now we specify the locations for the file systems, basically. So this is just where the root directory is, which is mount Copyparty. And then you can specify who has what access to it. So ACCS, which could, I assumed it was accounts, but it could also be access. Capital A means everything, all permissions, and that will go to haifu. And then R for read will go to everyone else. And then I will make I'll make the haifu user folder, and that is at mount Copyparty haifu, and then X A haifu, and that is it. So we will save that. And then let's see, there are just a couple commands we need to run from here. So we want to run this one, which you can see here, create dedicated system user, no login shell, and home directory. So I think it's creating a Copyparty user that will basically be operating here. Run that, then this is changing the owner to give ownership to Copyparty, or I think it's this syntax root : Copyparty. I think it's like it's owned by root and the Copyparty group, or something like that. It just changes ownership of that directory, and make sure you change this to wherever you put the folder. So it's just mount Copyparty for me, and then chmod, which is changing the permissions. Make sure you fix the directory. And this is the capital R on both of these makes it recursive. 775 means full permissions to the owner and group, and then I think read permissions to everyone else. And the 2 is a set gid bit, which is something I didn't know about before now, and I still don't entirely understand, but I think it's something like it makes it so things operated here are operated under the owner of the directory rather than whoever's executing it. Something like that. Okay, so that's all set. Now we just need to make the service. We have everything set up. We just have to tell it to begin. Now, the way you can just run the Python file. But ideally what you want is something that can just run in the background. As soon as you turn on the Raspberry Pi, the server's running. Because you don't want to have to SSH into it every time you turn on the Raspberry Pi. So I think there are a couple ways you can do that. I think you can do it with a cron job, maybe. But here we are using a systemd service. So we'll make a systemd service file, which would be sudo vim etc systemd system and then copyparty dot service, and we are just going to copy this from this page, which I will have linked in the description. I'm gonna paste that in. I'm just gonna change this to N rather than SFX because I used that version of it, but you know, make sure it matches. Make sure, you know, these locations are where you put the files. I think I left everything else here the same. I think that's all good. So we'll just save that. Oop. Undo that. There we go. Save that. And now we can just systems sudo systemctl enable copyparty.service, and then we want to start copyparty.service, and then we will daemon reload. I don't know if we need to do that now. Sometimes it'll just tell you that you need to reload them. So we can check and see if the server is currently running. So let's go to tutorial server.local 3923. Oh, yes, and this is right because I'm using Firefox, of course. Well, in Firefox, we'll go to 10.0.0.165, I think it was, 3923. There we go. Server is up and running. If I open this up in LibreWolf, this should work. Yeah, it's gonna warn me because it's HTTP only, but that's fine. There we go. We're all set. You can log in. Make sure, you know, we can add files and whatnot. Make a folder. There we go. Make a text file. There we go. All looks good. So the one thing left to check now is that the service does restart when you restart the Raspberry Pi. So to test that, we can just come in here and sudo reboot. It's gonna kick us off right away. Gonna reboot the Raspberry Pi. You can, you know, verify that the server is down. It's not. Can't get into it. Just wait a couple minutes for it to start back up. Let's try it. There we go. So yeah, you don't need to SSH into it again to start it back up. Just, power up the Raspberry Pi and it's going. You should probably still SSH into it to like update it now and then, that kind of thing. But yeah, now you just have this. I mean, this thing is the size of like, it's a little bigger than a stick of gum, and it might be the thickness of like 3 sticks of gum. Weighs probably, I don't know, 1/4 of an ounce or something. It's so light, so tiny, and so powerful. This is like an awesome thing to have. So, and so cheap to make as well. So I hope this has inspired you to set one of these up yourself. Definitely, check out the Copyparty site, the GitHub page, because it has a lot more information about stuff you can do with it. A lot of which I have not even delved into, but I just got this set up last night and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I wanted to help my friends set one up, and I was like, you know what, I'll just make a video and share it with other people as well who may not have heard of this before. But I'd say like this is a good thing that even if you aren't a very technical person, even if you don't use Linux, I've shown how to set this up pretty quickly without much difficulty. The only thing it would be figuring out how to SSH in on Windows, which I'm not certain on, but I know you can. You just have to look up how to do it. And yeah, you just do this, and now you have a little server running on your home network. Pretty sweet. Yeah, anyway, hope you enjoyed. I just thought of one other thing that I wanted to explain quickly before the end of the video is how to shut the Raspberry Pi down. I showed how to reboot it earlier, but to shut it down without just pulling the plug, which might be okay, but it's, kind of a brutal way of, you don't yank the power cord out of the back of your computer every time you shut it down, So SSH -at tutorial server local. So to shut down, just sudo shutdown, and it will schedule it for 1 minute. It'll kick you out once it's shut down. I imagine you can probably just exit now. Oh, that's the other thing. I might have mentioned it before, but to close out of an SSH connection, you just say exit. But the light on the Raspberry Pi should turn off once it's shut down. And also the Kiwix server, I didn't explain how to do that because I mostly wanted to focus on Copyparty. The Kiwix server for me is just sort of me prepping for disconnecting my internet connection. But there is a really great guide. It's very simple. I mean, setting up Copyparty was pretty simple, but setting up the Kiwix server is really simple. Kiwix Raspberry Pi. There's a GitHub page here that walks you through it. Yeah, you see how short that is. Very straightforward. Yep, there we go. Raspberry Pi shutdown. So yeah, I recommend doing that. Oh yeah, that's another thing I forgot to show. You can also check on the status of the service with sudo systemctl status copyparty.service, and that'll give you a bit of information. It'll show you the port that it's on. But yeah, anyway, I'm sure there are lots of other cool things to do in this vein on the Raspberry Pi that I haven't heard about yet. If you know of some, let me know, because I would be thrilled to add it to my little server that I've got going here. But yeah, I hope this inspired you to do it yourself.